And when this guy is just laughing when I'm talking about, well, how do you get them across the border? How hard is it with border patrol? And, he goes, he laughed and said, we don't consider that border a border. That's just the division between Mexico North and Mexico South. And that thing you guys call the border, it's like a speed bump on the freeway. It needs to be legalized the right way. And we did it the wrong way in California. When we made it a misdemeanor for a cartel grower to have an illegal farm indoors or outdoors, and an infraction for a juvenile grower, and the cartels bring their young guys up, we would see 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old grower apprentice, if you will, in these grow sites. And, they may not be savage at first, and some of them may never be savage, but then we would run into a handful of them that were in a really, what do I call a really, really aggro cell, aggressive. And we had a west side of the Santa Cruz Mountains in Silicon Valley, man, literally looking up to the west at the mountains above Meta headquarters and Cisco and eBay, no joke, where we had multiple gunfights. And you're looking at those mountains, and those are some of the most violent and vicious operators from the cartels that I'd ever run into, that my teammates that we'd ever seen, that our dogs had to sometimes engage, that would fight our dogs, would target our dogs with, fixed blade shanks or sharpened bones, to take those dogs out. Very aggressive. And they bring up their juvenile guys, and their juvenile guys have a automatic pistol on their side. Maybe they have a semi-automatic rifle. Maybe they're going to fight just like, their dad or their cousin or someone they're, being mentored under. And it's a culture of violence and chaos. So they're going to get credibility by being tough. Mm-hmm. So we knew we were going to see that. We had already seen it, but at least we had a felony statute. At least we could work with ICE agents. Very, very few of these growers were citizens of the U.S. I mean, I can't remember, maybe a handful at the most. So 90 plus of the people we're engaging in these grow sites are all cartel operatives, smuggled across the border, cutting their teeth, making a living doing it down there effectively, learning to divert water, learning to camouflage the grow, learning to harvest, learning to defend it, learning to camouflage it, all of those things. And then now they're in my backyard, they're in your backyard, they're kind of spread out everywhere. And now we make it a misdemeanor, and we know nobody's going to jail. We're told we can't talk to ICE, we can't talk to Border Patrol as a state agency, as game wardens who were federally deputized as well. So we have federal authority under U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and under policy, we will support federal law enforcement agencies that ask for help. And that's what we're supposed to do. And when now you're not working with federal agencies because of a mandate, from the governor's office on down in California, and it's a misdemeanor, nobody's going to touch that. You're going to eradicate the grow. You're not going to arrest anybody 9 times out of 10. Those guys are going to be in the wind. They're going to be protected. They're not even going to get deported anymore. And now they're just going to be in another grow site. Maybe they're going to be on a meth cook in the winter. Maybe they're trafficking children. Because what we got to understand is it's not just a green dope crime. These are polycriminals. They're like a good way of putting it is like take a really good general contractor and all of his subcontractors to build a nice home, right? The complex we're sitting in today. One guy, he's the concrete guy. He's building the foundation. This guy's going to frame, right? Then this guy's going to come in and sheetrock and electrical and plumbing, and you're going to have all these diversity. That's exactly how they work. They're all part of the same group. They're all centralized and they're working for certain people, but one guy is trafficking fentanyl. Dirty labs, down in Mexico, distribution, hitting the West Coast, East Coast, or if it's coming in, and that distribution center is locked down. It's very efficient. It's successful exponentially. We're talking billions, not millions, but billions of cash dollars. Another guy's doing the weed trade. This guy's doing meth. This guy's trafficking humans for work. This guy's trafficking children for the ugliest stuff we see, across the world. So we were on the tip of the iceberg when we were fighting the weed fight, which we still are. And for me being a conservationist, and, the saying we have in my family, my dad, my grandpa's saying is, the woods are my church. I grew up, learning to hunt at 9 years old. And it wasn't about, oh, you kill animals, so you hate animals. Exactly the opposite. Under the conservation model, if you harvest waterfowl or big game to consume, to feed your family with good meat. You do it humanely, you do it with ethics, you do it with gratitude. You fish and eat those fish, and you stay within those limits, and all that money and all that time we put into protecting those animals through ethical harvest. It sounds contradictory, but it's exactly the opposite, right?
It's a natural ecosystem.
Natural ecosystem. And now that we've got all these impacts on wildlife, cartels, development, just our population exploding, and open spaces and green belts going like this, we're the problem of destroying wildlife. We have no choice but to manage it now under the conservation model, or species will go extinct. They will die of starvation. It'll upset the predator, non-predator balance, plains game, all those different things. That's what the impacts were on the environmental side. And that's what really got me strongly passionate to fight these guys. We had no idea that fentanyl was a thing. We had no idea that these same growers were part of meth cooks, and I go into that in the book, of seeing how closely knitted they are, and getting to debrief and interviews of a high-level plaza boss that was picked up for a 22-pound meth cook in the winter, but responsible for 50 or more grow sites of weed out in the national forest in Northern California. And now he's going to talk freely, provided, he might have a little bit of leniency. And he was very forthright. And I got to sit in and be part of that interview with the feds and Spanish interpreters and videotaping and the sheriffs and everything we needed to find out. He was very forthright in revealing. And we were right on a lot of stuff. But what I didn't realize is the magnitude of how embedded they were. And this is going back to we're talking 2012, 2011, and it's escalated exponentially since then, as you know. And I did not know how embedded it was. And I'm taking this, say my hometown of Silicon Valley is just a bullet point example for every state in the union, and every region, rural or urban, has that presence of cartel crimes and cartel products in every state. And when this guy is just laughing when I'm talking about, well, how do you get them across the border? How hard is it with border patrol? And, he goes, he laughed and said, we don't consider that border a border. That's just the division between Mexico North and Mexico South. And that thing you guys call the border, it's like a speed bump on the freeway. $4,000 to $7,000 out of my organization making millions gets my best growers, my best traffickers up here in 24 to 48 hours. Even if they're deported, even if they're arrested,
come right back.
We're going to get them right back. And these are the guys that aren't just minions. These are the guys that are vetted, really good growers. They know how to divert water. They've done it under the federalis and Mexican military's nose, say in Sinaloa Highlands. They've grown weed. They've used the poisons on it to keep everything off it. They've got it dried and processed and been able to distribute it out of Mexico. Then those guys they're the tier one guys, and they'll bring them across the border. And it was all California at the time, and now it's gone many other places. But we were right there next to the, San Diego southern border. No brainer.
Yeah.
And California is one of only 6 true Mediterranean climates on the globe. So we are the ideal outdoor sunshine state to grow the best cannabis on the planet. And so the cartel started there.